Welcome back to the show, everyone. Marshall Ferguson here in Studio OUA today. Going to cut quickly now to a clip that I had with James Roberts, a quarterback who I interviewed last year on this show that I do called OVFL Live, Ontario Varsity Football League, some coverage for them. If you've ever heard of the OVFL, you understand that it's kind of a breeding ground for the next level of OUA football players, and James is definitely a great example of that. He's a guy who went from the Cambridge Lions of the OVFL into Guelph, and he ended up playing in the Yates Cup against yours truly. So kind of unique to get a chance to talk to him. Cut to the interview now, and then after the interview, we're going to be speaking with Laurier Golden Hawks, Kelsey Tika, as she is preparing to make her way to the FISU International Games. Going to be a lot of fun, but for right now, here is James Roberts. Welcome back inside OVFL Live, everyone. Your host, Marshall Ferguson. I'm joined on the phone right now by a guy who pretty familiar with the OVFL. He spent some time playing with the Cambridge Lions, and he's been pretty successful since he has left the OVFL, making the jump to an area that I'm pretty familiar with in the OUA. James Roberts. James, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am excellent, thank you. Wanted to get a hold of you because last season we spoke, and it's one of my favorite interviews that I did during the first season of OVFL Live, because when I was talking to you, I had absolutely no idea I would be playing against you in the Yates Cup.
Yep. It's a small world.
It is
for sure.
It is definitely, and I knew you from camps and different things that I coached when I was slightly older than you, will say. And when I saw that you were going to Guelph, I knew that you were going to have a lot of success last season when I watched you in Cambridge. But what has the jump been like for you from the OVFL to the OUA?
It's been different. I think the biggest thing that's blown out of proportion, I think, is the physicality of the game. It's definitely something to understand and be aware of, and just monitor and make sure you're ready to go and compete in that level. But I think the biggest jump is mentally. And if you're not prepared mentally and you're not prepared and willing to put in the work to study up and watch film daily, then it's just kind of that thing that one little point that everyone needs and everyone needs to understand and use. And if you don't, I just don't think you can excel at the next level.
Do you think that's the biggest jump? I mean, you say physicality, that's an obvious one because you're going to get smashed by guys that are much larger than you, and we'll get to that in a second. But aside from kind of getting beat up by some of the bigger guys in the league, the preparation, is it just, I know it's more demanding. I know from personal experience it's more demanding, but what about the preparation is so different to you? Because I know that you must have done some of your work when you were playing for Cambridge, but again, when you get to Guelph there in the OUA, they probably have the film room open to you all the time, and they want you to be in all the time, and they want you to work with your receivers on off days and all of those things, right?
Yep. I think that's the biggest thing there is just, I've always watched film, and I've always loved that part of the game, so I'm totally okay with that. I really enjoy that. I honestly do. And I just think from the next level kind of observation, like you see other guys and see how they react and see what they do off the field, and then you can see it kind of transfer over. And I think really once you prepare, you just become so much more comfortable out there. And like the physicality is a massive thing, and which is I think a hit's a hit, really. So
yeah.
But if you're not prepared mentally, you just can't be relaxed and be able to play to your best ability almost. I think you can kind of see the guys that are confused on their plays, and you and me know from experience in playing the games where you'll see where they were in a miscue and they weren't in the right set, which caused them to make a mistake.
Yeah, you were a first year, you're very young in that offense, yet being a quarterback, you're naturally put in a position where you're expected to be able to command your huddle and run everything and make sure everyone's in the right spot. What kind of interaction did you have with your teammates in your first year in the OUA in terms of kind of wanting to put them in the right spot, but then sometimes realizing, I'm 3 years younger than some of these guys, and it might be a weird situation? Because I went through that when Kyle was out for suspension in 2011. I stepped into a huddle that had Matt Sewell and a couple of other guys who were in their fourth, fifth year, and I'm looking around and I'm like, they're expecting me to make decisions for them in order to, the entire team to have success. But it almost puts more pressure on you, doesn't it? And it makes you lock in because you realize the importance of every moment.
It definitely does a bit. I think, especially at the position that we play, that quarterback position, I think the age is much less relevant. I think that really everyone kind of looks at you and everyone knows what you need to do, and you know what you need to do. And I mean, at the same time, you're right. You have to kind of ride that fine line of don't be that rookie, right?
Yeah.
You gotta be that guy that's still level-headed and nothing is gonna kind of cross over to the guys that are older than you. I think the biggest thing I did was that I just kind of I played my role. I tried to play my role to the best of my ability, and that was kind of what I tried to stay inside the whole time.
There's nothing worse than a guy who walks into the huddle and just goes, hey, fifth-year guy, go stand over there, okay? Because I got this. Yeah. It's going to be all right. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. You have the record in the OVFL for the longest completion, 109 yards, 2012, Cambridge Lions against Brampton. What the hell happened? Explain the play to me. Break it down. Where did you throw?
You want to explain the play? All right. Okay, so shout out to Eric Cusimano, first of all. He's the receiver that caught the pass. So he played at Waterloo. I'm not sure if he's still there or not, but I've spoken to him in a little while.
Okay.
So we're playing in Brampton, and this is a year that it was my grade 12 year, was it?
It was 2012, it says, so.
2012, yeah, okay. So I think that's my grade 12. So
it's all a blur once you're in the OUA.
Oh, yeah. It's just all a blur. I think we were up 14-0 at the time, and Brampton wasn't as good. We weren't playing very good on our side of the football. And, classic OVFL, you see that saw blitz pressure, like no one's hiding nothing. You can see it about 10 minutes early. And
yeah.
We had a vertical on from field side slot, and we were on our own 1 yard line, and I was like, well, hey, I think you only got one spot to go here, and I better get it off quickly. So put it up in the air, and I think he threw up a stiff arm, and I kind of gave him the 2 or 3 yard separation, and then it was just off of the races. It's pretty sweet.
So he did have to make one guy kind of miss to shake him off?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. It was a sick play on his part, yeah. I remember actually running him down after I threw it and hitting him. Like, I full-on tackled him. The ref got pretty mad at me for the celly. I was so amped up.
That's the old Brett Favre. That's one of the best celebrations a quarterback can do when you get in the end zone and throw down on him. That's beautiful. Tell me a play, not necessarily in the OV that you've had, but one just came to mind of my own career when I heard you talking about it, of a play where you throw it really short, and it goes way longer than you expect it to, and you lose your mind because you know you're just picking up passing stats on absolutely doing nothing. Like you throw a check down and somebody goes house or something.
Oh, I got it right here. That last season there, we played a game against Halton, and you saw our stats, and we weren't much of a deep shot team.
Right.
We were a dink and dunk, get your yards and get up kind of thing, right?
Yep.
And our wide receiver, Brad Vince, probably runs a 6'7" flat 40. Threw him a hitch screen.
That's fast, right?
Oh yeah, he's blazing speed. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Threw him a hitch screen, and I think he took it for like 60 or something like that. And I went bananas. I thought that was incredible.
As a quarterback, that's definitely one of those situations where you're like, okay, let's just get the ball out of my hand quickly. What? And you just start sprinting down the field, and you have no idea what's going on. The one that came to mind when I heard you talking about having to throw a stiffy and then the guy taking it the rest of the distance there on that record-breaking 109-yard completion against Brampton was playing at Laval preseason 2012. So we actually did this in the same year. I threw a 108-yard touchdown, so you got me beat. But it was against Laval, at Laval, preseason. I think it was
a bit more impressive.
I played like absolute you-know-what for the entire game. We're backed up on our 2-yard line or so, and we ran same thing, 4 verts going deep, and I basically didn't know what I was looking at because Laval was so confusing even in the preseason. So I dropped back looking to just chuck a bomb wherever I can find it. Then I'm like, you know what? I really just don't want to throw an interception at my own 30-yard line. So our running back checks out to the flats. Matt Kitt was his name, local Hamilton guy who actually played for the Ironmen for a couple of years here in the OVFL.
Okay.
Threw him a flat route. He might have caught it at the 4-yard line and about 10 yards away from me. It was one of those situations where you know there's certain guys that are coming to hit you and you just want the ball out of your hands, right? I'm sure you've been there as well. So got the ball out of my hands. I'm like, hey, here we go. Solid check down. That's the one time I've hit it all year. I get it to Matt Kitt. He runs towards the sideline and then he turns north as he hits the sideline. It was like a 90-degree cut. There was absolutely no angling to it at all. I don't know why he made it a 90-degree cut because there was nobody close to him, but they had all run off deep with the verts. And then for some reason, they don't teach geometry at Laval, and every player took the wrong angle. And he turned as he hit the sideline and hit the jets, which for Matt Kitt are good, but they're not exceptional. He hit the jets, and all of a sudden he was gone down the sideline, and we had a 108-yard touchdown. Now, I finished the game 5 of 18 for 120 yards and 1 touchdown. So you do the math. Take out that one completion, 4 of 17 for about 12 yards. So...
We've all had those, don't worry.
Yeah, not my most shining moment, but it's always fun to think about those ideas of things that have gone on in the past that you've had some fun with. What is a moment from your first season in the OUA, we'll go back to it for a second, that you'll kind of cherish as your favorite going forward? When you end up your career and you're done, what do you think you're going to look back on that first year and be, man, that was great?
I think I'll probably say my first pass. I think I was lucky enough to get that first pass off to Alex Schredt in that UFC game for 6. I thought that was a pretty cool moment. Yeah. I mean, it was a pretty action-packed first year, but we didn't really get the result we wanted, right? And I don't think I can honestly say that one of those best moments was in the playoffs, right? It didn't really end up in the scenario. You know what I mean? If it would have ended differently, maybe that could have been. But I think for now, I think it'd be that first game I played.
Yeah, definitely. And again, it's the thing that I've been saying to people since we ended the season was you guys played us at Max so close all season. And, we had other teams that played us very, very close throughout the year. I would make the argument based on the run that we were able to go on that if it would have been different timing and other teams would have peaked, you would have had guys at Windsor that used to play for Essex that would have gone on a run towards the Vanier like we did. You would have had a variety of different teams that would have been able to make that run that we did towards the Vanier because we were all so tightly matched and we all have the capability and the dangerous offense, mix of special teams and a little bit of defense here and there to be able to put together a run. So I really do think it could have been anybody, and you guys were right on the edge, and I'm sure you're going to have great success moving forward. But the OVFL, how many guys from your team at Cambridge moved on either with you to Guelph or guys went to other OUA teams?
A lot.
Yeah, I would imagine so because you were pretty successful, right?
A very good amount. I think as far as receivers go alone, I would say 4 or 5. O-lineman, probably, again, around 4 or 5. The one O-lineman here is at Guelph, Eric Starzella, who went to my high school too, actually.
Nice.
And then Andrew Pickett, who went to Resurrection, he's actually here too as well. He played on to me a couple of years ago. I think even defensively, probably total in the double digits, most likely. I think really that we did have a lot of guys that are able to go to the next level and hopefully excel at some point.
How much of a role does playing with guys that you are familiar with and that you might have worked with previously play in recruiting? When a school is trying to bring in, they bring in you on a recruiting trip, well, guess who's coming with you? A couple of your receivers, and then you all start talking to each other and you say, you know what, this wouldn't be the worst idea to try and play together for a couple more years.
I think it's big. There's really no doubt in a lot of people's mind that high school was some of the best times of your life. And that was kind of like, that started your football career, right? And that was kind of those things where you'd play every day, you'd play in the freaking cold, you'd play on this muddy field, right? And I think that just kind of created that kind of bond with those guys you played with. And really, I really do, I would love another chance to play with those guys again in my high school uniform kind of thing. I think that'd be great. I think for sure that's a good recruiting tactic, just because those kids that do realize it will make the kind of choice based off of that. And I think it helps too. I think if you come in and, especially from quarterback to wide receiver too, right? Like you came into camp and you got no chemistry with the random quarterback you just met, right?
Yeah.
I think coming in, if you could steal some reps with the quarterback you've been stealing with for 5 years, you could probably make yourself look a lot better too.
Yeah. Who were some of the guys that you watched when you were coming up through high school that you watched in the OUA or some other conferences maybe, and you looked at them and you were like, wow, like one day I want to play like that? Who were guys you looked up to?
Quinlan.
Yeah.
Quinlan, no doubt. I mean, even Austin Kennedy too. Seeing that guy scrambling around was nuts. He's incredible.
He's his own animal, isn't he?
I'm a big fan of AK. Oh yeah, he's awesome. I totally agree with you. I think that's definitely underlooked. Like people just think about all the time the offense puts in, but the defense sometimes puts even more time in, right? Because they're in reality they're at the disadvantage.
Yeah, it's very true.
Like in the big scheme of things, kind of thing. But yeah, no, I think watching Quinlan come up, I remember watching that Vanier game. That was something else. That's something that the whole CIS will probably never forget. I remember watching AK run around on my recruiting visits everywhere I went. That was awesome too. He's fun to watch.
Yeah, he's a guy who kind of created his own running around style in the OUA that nobody was familiar with. But hey, he did it in the OV first, right? I mean, he was in Essex, and same with Kyle. Some of the vintage clips of Kyle Quinlan playing in the OVFL are hilarious because he's just, you can just see that he is taller and stronger and throwing the ball 20 yards deeper than everyone else, and the safeties aren't deep enough, and just throwing over people's heads, which is great.
Yeah.
So, sometimes, and as much as we love to talk about the beautiful game in the OVFL and how entertaining it is, sometimes it is just amateur football. And I just talked about Kyle, throwing bombs over people's heads. What's kind of the most amateurish moment that you had in either high school or the OV where you look back on it now and you're like, that is ridiculous that we used to do that? Because I have my own, a couple of them where I think about, getting dressed in a trailer at a high school at the end and you're like, really? That was something we did? Or, running in your your defensive lineman who's never carried the ball before on the 1 yard line because the coach decides to get creative? What's something like that for you where you go back to it now and you're like, I can't believe that was a thing?
Well, I mean, the one I wasn't actually on this team, but the first time I played with Tyler Varga.
Yep.
And that was in my grade 9 year, and I played Lions with him in the JV team. That went pretty far. And the big joke was there was a guy on the team named Joel Kirkland, and the year before that, they were getting changed in the game, and I think it was like Newmarket. Oh, yeah, it was Newmarket. And he stepped on a fish hook in the showers after the game and had to get taken to the ambulance. Because that's how, like, the changers probably haven't been touched in months. And then that year that I was playing with Tyler Varga, we played at Newmarket on this field that looked like a cellar. Like, there was a chain fence from, honestly, a yard off the end line, like of the sidelines.
Yeah.
All the way around, a chain fence, just like a yard. So, like, you'd be throwing corner routes, and you're like, you're going to kill your receiver. Like, not because of the player. Like, they're going to hit the fence and die. Like, this is terrible. Like, I don't know how to throw this anymore.
Cage match.
It was a cage match. It was. It was a steel cage.
That is amazing. That's so funny to hear. Well, there's a lot of moments like that again, we look back on now and you're just like, I can't believe that. And I think playing a football game inside a cage match would be one. You talk about corners of the end zone being cut off. This is my last question for you because it's strictly a quarterback one that nobody else will care about except for me and you. But the corners of the end zones being cut off at certain fields and then not being cut off on other fields. How much does that suck? Because at Guelph, I know that you guys have them cut a little bit. Do you not?
We do, yes.
Yeah, so you're one of the schools that has them cut a little bit. Western seems to be the worst for it. Not to mention that their track is surrounded by, or the track surrounds the field so closely, so it's not very comfortable when people crash over onto the track. But
I agree.
Yeah, the corners of the end zone are just a terrible, terrible. You know, the Canadian end zones are already so big, so people are going to say, "What are you whining about? You're losing 3 yards." But sometimes that 3 yards makes a huge difference to a quarterback, doesn't it?
It's massive. Those 3 yards are the most important 3 yards in the end zone itself.
Yeah, it's true.
And I think and you're so right. Like, you go from university to university, and it's like Western seems like they're taking 8 yards from you.
Yeah.
And then there's some schools that looks like you're adding 12, right? Like, it looks like you just got a whole world to throw it now. But like throwing that corner route, you need those extra 3 yards. It's a necessity.
Yeah.
And I think practicing on a field with the cutoff end zone is much better, because then when you go to a field with anything bigger, you're able to just kind of let it loose, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, no, it's very true. And at the Jake, is that what people call it in Cambridge where you guys play? Yeah.
Yep, the Jake. Yeah.
That's a fantastic nickname. Are the end zones cut off there?
They are, but it's not near as bad. It looks like. Actually, maybe they're not. No, they're not. They're not cut off. No, it's a rectangle.
Doesn't matter. You score anyways, right?
Yeah, we try every throw.
Every throw. That's good. Do you get a chance to go back at all in the summer to see any OV games?
I haven't got yet to see OV games. I know they just got a win on Thursday night there, so that was good to hear. I got back for a couple of high school games. I'm going to try and get back for a couple of practices and, just kind of go hang out and talk with the guys for sure.
That's awesome. Well, you had great success in your first year in the OUA, so you're going to have great success again. And try to stay off of Vine, okay? Because I know that you're all famous now from being on when the backflip happened this past week, which anyone who is on social media will understand what role you played in a cool little clip. So I appreciate you joining the show, buddy, and we'll talk to you soon, okay?
Yeah, hey, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
No worries. Anytime. That is James Roberts. James Roberts from an interview from earlier this week. In conversation with him, pretty interesting. My favorite little bit from that whole kind of discussion was when he said, high school is probably the best time in your life. Just reminds you of Friday Night Lights once you leave high school, it all goes downhill unless you go into the OUA. Then you're just fine. Going to come back right now after about a 30-second break real quick. Going to be speaking with Kelsey Tika of the Laurier Golden Hawks women's soccer program.